Kelly's on holiday.
It's crisis time.
Give him a holiday.
It's
give him
crisis
a break.
time. You need me now more than you've ever needed me, so I'm coming back to help you out. To retrieve potentially what is a disastrous situation.
No.
Hyundai taking the manufacturer's and driver's title in Toyota City.
He has literally got to keep that car in the middle of the road and just get to the end. I would venture that even Cole could drive around.
It's a farce. It is nothing short of a farce that we have drivers who could win the title sitting at home. Oliver wins it Sunday afternoon in Japan. He's in Sweden on his Bobcat.
Yeah, exactly. Where does Taka sit in Toyota? Massive pressure on him at home. He wants to perform.
In Japan, it is very, very different for him. There's so much pressure on him.
But does he feed off that? Or
I don't think he does.
No.
And he felt it last year. He really felt the pressure. And I'm not saying that contributed to his off. I've said it before. I think that section of road for that 5 or 6 minutes that those three cars was undrivable. Yeah. We talk about politics just now in motorsport. The characters that you had in the mid-80s. The politics around rallying was just...
At every turn, there was something to talk about, something to say. And
it was almost crippling. It was almost crippling at times.
Well, we've only got a few days to go until the 2024 World Rally Championship reaches its crescendo in Japan. Welcome along to a special edition of Spin the Rally Pod. Hello to everybody watching on YouTube, and hello to our loyal listener base listening on whatever your chosen podcast provider is as well. I am joined by David Evans and Colin Clark to talk about many things.
At least you got the names in the right order there.
I did. Well, yeah, that's... Thanks, David.
I know my place. Yeah. I really do know my place.
But yeah, the plan here is obviously to talk through the final round of the season, and actually later on as well, we're going to have a little bit of a debate about what our favourite championship deciders have been. And Colin, that's final round deciders as well. There was a little bit of...
I cannot believe how much anxiety this has caused me.
The championship is still to be claimed, the Drivers' Championship. We probably thought it would already have been claimed coming into this one, if we're honest, but Drivers' Championship, Manufacturers' Championship and WRC2 are all up for grabs here in Japan, so there's plenty to look forward to get into. But what I want to ask you both, Thierry Neuville leads his teammate Ott Tänak by 25 points, a maximum of 30. Is this still a fight? Do we have a fight to talk about, or is this just waiting for Thierry to do it?
Wait, 100%. Just Thierry has just got to drive around. I would venture that even Cole could drive around and claim it. But that's it, isn't it? He has literally got to keep that car in the middle of the road and just get to the end. But when you're in that position, that can be incredibly taxing in itself, can't it?
It's when you're in that position and when the unexpected comes along. And we saw that in Japan last year, didn't we, with that weather? And it was absolutely awful that claimed those cars on, what was it, the first stage of the morning, wasn't it? First or second stage. All of those things we have to think about potentially, but I totally agree with you, David. It's his 100% to lose. But Japan is just, it's given us something interesting every year. It really has. There's always been something there to talk about. There's been something unexpected the last couple of years that we've been in Japan. Are we going to see something unexpected this year? I think there's always that potential, and that's what makes it really quite exciting for me. There are other rounds that might have been more straightforward for Thierry Neuville.
But there's no aspect of Japan this time of year that is straightforward.
Well, that's it.
When the weather can change so much, and the tyre choice is consistently compromised through the leg, isn't it? If it rained in Corsica or if it rained in Spain, the teams knew from the last 10 years, 20 years, that bit of road will do that. That bit of road, when it dries, you'll get more grip over there. There's none of that in
What's
Japan.
the best example of that?
The best example of that is...
in Spain. Final day, Sebastian Loeb, when he won. When he won in the
Citroen.
When he won in the Citroen, and he knew...
and he beat Panizzi.
He knew, 2018.
Oh, 2018. Yeah. No, I was going back further when he didn't lose.
Colin won't know about that. Unless he's researched it. It's not 1979, so he doesn't know that one.
Thank you. But it's true. But, that's the best example of that. Loeb knew those stages like the back of his hand.
Yes.
And he knew, even although as they were leaving the service park, the rain was torrential, he knew the stages would dry up. Yeah. He knew it, and he took the dry he took the rest went out on wets, he went on dries, and he absolutely sailed away with it. you're quite right. In Japan, no one, not even Toyota, have that level of knowledge of how things might change and develop as the rally develops.
Yeah.
Makes it interesting.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I hate to say it, I'm not a massive fan of tarmac rallies until it rains or until tarmac rallies are at this time of the year. And then they are absolutely fascinating.
I totally agree with you. I think the issue we had with Spain for too many years is it became too processional. It was too processional.
Processional.
Processional, yeah.
Processional. Too
Words.
predictable.
We're good at them.
Too predictable. But you look back to Rally Germany. Rally Germany was always entertaining because inevitably there would be something would happen with the weather, with the conditions, with the cuts, whatever. And I think Japan is a similar rally to that. I think, you can get bored of tarmac rallies, but not Japan.
No.
Not this iteration of Rally Japan.
But
anyway.
you look back and historically, that was why David Richards wanted essentially to get rid of tarmac rallies. That's why probably San Remo moved to Sardinia because it was 20 miles down the road from Monte Carlo, very similar. And like you said, not a lot, if you got a dry one, it was pretty dull. Usually came around the same time as Corsica or Spain. So a bit of gravel, car sliding. But yeah, this one, anything can happen in Japan.
Is anything going to happen to Neuville? It is. You know what? A few years ago, when he was on that run of second in the championship, you just didn't think. You just didn't look like a champion. You didn't think, this is going to change. Neuville is going to be a world champion. Certainly for the past 6 months, he's looked nothing other than a world champion to me. He has managed this from the very first rally that he won in Monte Carlo through the difficult periods in the fast gravels, Safari, and then the fast gravels. To me, he just looks like a man who knows exactly what he's doing this year, and I have no concerns whatsoever for Thierry Neuville.
And I would agree 100%. I think the shift in Thierry has been seismic, and he didn't think that there was still that shift to come. Back end of last year, the year before, you were kind of thinking, Thierry's just counting down the years now.
He missed his opportunity.
When Tanak comes to the team, that's it. Tanak will take him to the cleaners, and he's driven like a champion. Ogier absolutely deserves it. And I think Safari was an impressive team result. The way that they came to terms with Sunday and how to turn Sundays to their advantage, they got that. And like you say, Cole, the speed, he knew... Those three rallies in Poland, Latvia and Finland, they were a mental fight for Thierry as much as anything else, and he dealt with it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, which for me, those three events are where he took the biggest step. Previously, we would have seen him in the trees, probably on 2 of the 3 of them, and the championship would have gone again.
Would it be unfair to say that he has been helped along the way? Potentially. Potentially, Tanak dropped the ball. He'll say it was partly his fault, partly the team's fault. Ogier had an opportunity. If Ogier had done Poland, for example, might we have been looking at a different scenario? Is that a little unfair?
I think there's ways you can look at it and see that you could twist it and say he's been let off the hook, couldn't you? But I would say he's looked that... Monte Carlo's the big one for me. And I know it's only one rally, but the way he came out and started the season like that, nobody knew what to expect from the new point system, the new way he had to go and win rallies and get the most points. He got the full 30 at the first opportunity. It was a proper sort of drawing a line in the sand, a marker. This is my year. He knew no Kai Rovanperä this year. Last year's champion, he's not there. Thierry, as you say, he has Tanak as his teammate again, but Tanak's bad start put him on the back foot. Elvin has just not quite been at the same level. Ogier's the one for me that I'd have loved to have seen if he'd done a full year. I know that's not going to happen.
But I don't think it even needed a full year. I think if he'd done Poland,
and he was just closer.
Absolutely. The last 3 rallies have been very unusual for Sebastian Ogier, but I suspect that they're a consequence of the situation he's found himself in. That need, that absolute need on the back foot.
He's rarely in a championship fight. I don't think he's
rarely
on the back foot.
No, absolutely.
But I think you're right about Tanak as well. I think there's a feeling that when he went to those 3 rallies in the summer, they were almost home fixtures for him, weren't they? He knew he had the advantage over Thierry. He'd done a warm-up rally. He'd had a good test. He had a big crash.
Yeah, pretty bad, yeah.
Well, but he
It's not
started
ideal
Poland,
preparation.
David. He started Poland and we thought, whoa, this is
Yeah.
Tanak, he's back.
Yeah.
He was setting an incredible time in shakedown.
Yeah.
We should never get too excited. But he really was. And then the first stage was great. The split was great before the deer stepped out in front of him.
Yeah. Which, those things, inevitably, they do happen in this sport. And, that was really unfortunate. But, as Thierry potentially has won the championship there, I'd say Tanak's lost the championship there. And you're right. I think if Ogier had done Poland, it would have been fascinating, because for sure he would have picked up 18, 20 points, something like that. He would have been absolutely knocking on the door with Thierry. Potentially then he's won the next 2 or 3 because there's less pressure on him. But, you can look back through championship histories, and we'll do this with last rounds, and you go back to 95, which was, one of the iconic battles, and Colin McRae was world champion in 95, and Carlos had missed New Zealand or Australia when he'd fallen off his bike, and that people then forget about that.
Yeah.
Colin was champion in 95. Thierry will be champion in 2024. People will not remember.
No, I was playing devil's advocate there. I don't believe what I said. I don't believe the others have. I genuinely believe that right from, as you say, the very first rally, it wasn't just the way that he went about winning in Monte Carlo. For me, what's defined the year has been the Sundays, and he's been the most aggressive pursuer of Sunday points. And he's got the strategy. And I'm not even going to give the team credit for this. I think Neuville has got the strategy right in terms of the Sunday approach. And he deserves it. There is no question. His driving this year, his speed this year, his intelligence and his strategic approach
his
this year.
rallycraft.
His rallycraft has been better than anyone's. And, if you're better than anyone, then you deserve what comes your way.
Yeah.
Just to put some numbers around this, because we are talking as if Thierry's done it. He still has a job to do of sorts in Japan. The lead is 25 points going into the weekend. Obviously, as I said before, there's a maximum of 30. For Tanak, essentially that means he needs at least 26 points from the weekends to stand any chance, and that's if Thierry's not scoring any. So it's not looking particularly positive.
How would you score 26 points?
There's many ways. Many ways you can do that. I'll think about it. But yeah.
So Thierry needs 5.
Yes.
So
5 points. So yes, essentially. So Thierry could retire on Friday or Saturday and
he
score
can do
nothing.
So he can just literally pootle around,
And
get
then
to the power stage,
get enough
kill the
stages
power
of-
stage. I mean,
yeah.
it's a bit risky.
Yeah.
Not suggesting you do that, Thierry.
And then even in that regard, that's dependent on Tanak being the one that
Goodness
takes
that
on.
David Evans is the team manager right now. Just
I wouldn't employ myself as a team principal. Probably not the best.
But yeah, all of that, of course, is dependent on Tanak being the one that's about to claim the most points as well, which I dare say is far from a given. So,
Here's, sorry to interrupt you, really sorry.
Go for
but
it.
here's what complicates it. It's the manufacturers that complicate it.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
You can't do what
Yeah.
David says. You can't do what
Well-
David says and rely on Sunday points.
You got really excited by remembering that
did,
point.
Can I go and make a tea now?
That's exactly right, Cole. In the back of their minds all the time, it's got to be push, but don't push too hard. Push a bit harder, not that hard.
I've got another point.
Yep.
Because we're talking about 3 drivers for manufacturer points. But it is Mickelson,
yeah,
isn't it?
Mickelson is Mickelson, yeah.
He's not strong enough. He's not. You cannot rely on him. So Neuville, ideally what Neuville would like to be able to do is say, tell you what, boys, I'll be the safety net.
Yeah.
And let's let Tanak and Mickelson push for the manufacturer's points. Mickelson is not strong enough to do that, sadly.
But if you think that's complicated,
Yeah.
where does Taka sit in Toyota? He goes there, he's back on the wave a little bit after a great, brilliant driving
fantastic.
CER. Massive, massive pressure on him at home. He wants to perform. How much is he going to want to dial it back if he's ahead? If he picks up where he left off last year, he could be leading.
No, that's very straightforward. Elvin Evans is the safety net there. Elvin Evans is the safety net. He has to be. Taka-san, you look at the 3 Toyota drivers, it's Ogier, Taka-san, Evans.
So you give Taka-san the chance just
Go
to
ahead.
go on ahead.
Go ahead. And Elvin, you are effectively your responsibility here is, I should be the team boss.
You should.
You know.
You are telling last year's rally winner not to go for the win, is all I will say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A reasonable point. But do you know what? We know at this level of this sport, confidence is absolutely king. Confidence is what delivers victories.
Yeah.
Elfyn Evans right now for me is a driver who lacks confidence, and that's dead easy to say and very difficult to define. Whereas Taka-san, you know, strangely, coming off the back of CER, with the performance in Japan last year, Taka-san will be full of confidence. I suspect he will, which might sound a bit odd considering the season he's had. CER is one result.
Do you think he feeds off the energy of, you know, we've been in Toyota City and it is remarkable. You know, the people are queuing up outside and they're queuing up for one person from before dawn. And you know, it's not often that you see, and it's a proper Formula One style. You see it in Finland with Calais, you'd see it most places with Ogier, you see it remarkably with Taka in Japan. Like, he has to be led everywhere. There's bodyguards, there's big hands to bow, trying to part the crowds. But does he feed off that? Or
I don't think he does.
No,
I don't think he does.
Because he kind of shies away a little bit, doesn't he?
I think it is it's a drain on his mental resource. You know, he has to be 100% focused, and we saw it out there last year. You know, Taka-san is the most amiable of characters.
Yeah.
You know, he's a lovely guy, and he'll stop and talk to fans. He'll sign autographs. In Japan, it is very, very different for him. There's so much pressure on him, and he felt it last year. He really, really felt the pressure. And I'm not saying that contributed to his off. I think I've said it before. I think that section of road for that 5 or 6 minutes that those three cars was undrivable.
Yeah.
It was undrivable. I don't think anyone could have driven any of those cars up that road and got it around that corner.
Yeah.
It was like a river.
The really nice one was Danny Sordo. And Danny took the time to go and say to other team principals, whatever your drivers are telling you, it's right. You could not. He's got so much experience of driving, particularly on tarmac, and he said, no, you could not get the car up that bit of road, down that bit of road.
So I don't think the pressure contributed to that last year for Taka-san, but he was a man under pressure, and you could see it in the pre-event activities they were doing. He doesn't like it. It didn't sit comfortably with him. And it is, you know, when all you want to do is focus on the task in hand, which is to get your car as quickly as you can through the stages, to have to deal with all of that scrutiny and pressure and expectation. You know, the very best struggle at times, don't they?
And on top of all of that, you've probably got you singing at him as well. Last thing you need. Sorry. Give us a song. Come on.
Taka-san, Taka-san. It's really good.
For the benefit of
I'll come up with a new song. I will come up with a new song.
For the benefit
which I won't sing. I promise not to sing it unless he does something special.
Okay. For the benefit of the YouTube watchers, click the link up here to see the original version of this one. For a couple of years ago now, but it's still
stuck. A few years ago, it was the Safari Rally during the COVID days when we did it. Remember, David, up in... you didn't take part in the song. Where we did it up in M Sport, and myself and Gary, who was our cameraman producer at the time,
I didn't do it.
First podium for Taka-san, we did a little ode to Taka-san.
But even better than that, we sang Africa. That was a classic. Remember that?
Maybe we don't dig that one up. That's not worth seeing. But I'm just going to put a little bit of context around the manufacturers' battle. We've kind of morphed into that with the rest of the conversation, which is fair because I think, particularly when we talk about Tanak, realistically, that's what he's looking to try and win for Hyundai. The driver's title, he said it's up to Thierry. It's Thierry's to lose. If he somehow gets it, great. But I don't think he's heading to Japan thinking that realistically he's going to do it. Hyundai have a 15-point lead over Toyota. That gap has been coming down in recent rallies, so it's all fitting into a very nice crescendo in Japan on Toyota's home patch, no less, as well. So it'll be kind of important for both teams for different reasons, I suspect, winning a championship there. But the key thing, and you reminded me of this, Colin, before we started recording, is that gap obviously looks quite big, and it gives Hyundai an advantage, but Toyota can win for themselves. Correct. They do not have to rely on Hyundai to do X or Y.
Even looks confused.
So if they are top,
he looks quite statesman-like with that face.
Regal.
Regal.
But if Toyota have 1 and 2 from Saturday's classification and then top Sunday,
it's 25 plus 18.
There's no 25. No, it's 18 plus 15.
No, it's not. No, if you're first and second in manufacturers, 25 plus 18.
Where are you getting
Let's
your
look
25 from?
Friday. Let's look Saturday first.
Okay,
Saturday.
the point is, it's genuinely true. It is, because we've seen it happen in Chile. Toyota can...
Get a 1-2,
For-
a 1-2 from a manufacturer.
Yeah, they need...
Then how many points is that?
From the weekend?
Yeah.
I think 55. But we can VAR
He's
check
right.
that one.
He's right, David. It's Saturday points, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's Saturday points. It is then
sorry.
Super Sunday points, and it is Power Stage
It's
points.
been a while since
Now,
I've been on a WRC round.
The interesting thing is there are
I'm
three
clearly not
different...
the boss anymore.
No, he is. There are three different ways of calculating
Yes,
manufacturer
yes.
points,
Yeah.
which
It's all
is,
coming back to you
I
now.
think, ridiculous, and that will change next year, we
Yeah.
understand.
Yes.
But the point is, it is still very much in Toyota's hands.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have to rely on Hyundai dropping the ball. If they take maximum points, as they did in Chile,
Yeah.
maximum points Saturday are 1 and 2, maximum points Sunday are 1 and 2, maximum points Power Stage are 1 and 2, they win the manufacturer.
So, news just in. Turns out
Yeah.
that they're all right.
Yeah. The point to wrap a little bow on this is Toyota can win the Manufacturers' Championship
On
all
their
themselves.
own.
Like I said 5 minutes ago. But it's okay.
It might have been longer
That's
than 5
okay.
minutes.
But if you actually look at that team in particular, there is one name that I think we probably all expected would be there in the ranks, Kalle Rovanperä. Not there.
I'm
It's a
astonished.
difficult one, this,
I was
isn't it?
astonished that he wasn't at CER, and I am flabbergasted that he's not in Japan. Honestly, I'm not.
Why?
Because.
Do you want me to show you his contract? It says in black and white how many
Oh,
rallies.
man.
He's already
You show
done
me,
it.
show me Ogier's
Yeah, I'm
contract.
gonna-
Show me
He's
your
done-
contracts, Montracts. Who cares about contracts? Who cares
Brilliant.
about contracts?
He's no longer a team manager. He's not allowed to be team manager.
No, genuinely. Are
Yeah,
you
but Carl,
telling me? I agree,
what's-
David. The contract, he's contracted for 6 or 7 events. He gets paid a lot of money to do those 6 or 7 events. They want him to do one more event.
But he's,
Are
no,
you
2
telling
more.
me?
You said they wanted 2 more.
They did want
CR
2
and
more,
Japan.
but as a minimum, surely they went to him afterwards and said, look, let's
Yeah,
come
and he's
to
got
Japan.
plans. He's on holiday. That's the whole point of a part-time campaign. I actually agree with Colin a little bit here.
I
Japan,
think it is
Japan is the
remarkable.
one that I wasn't surprised to see it. I was a little bit surprised to see it, but not that much. But Japan, you kind of think, it's Toyota, it's Japan. But Calais on holiday.
It's crisis time.
Give him a holiday.
It's
Give him a
crisis
break.
time.
He's been rallying for like 20 years. What do you think? Should he be there?
Should's an interesting word. I think no, because I genuinely think Elvin, Taka and Seb are good enough on their own.
Right.
I was surprised. Of all the events for him to not be here, I thought they would have told him, do Japan.
For me, the question is not how many rounds did he have in his contracts. That is not the question. The question is how much does he want to help his team out?
Of course he
Nothing to
wants
do.
to help the team out. Of course he does.
But then he can
he's
do
on
it.
holiday.
No, but you can't.
And he's got plans.
I think you could argue if you look at the way Sebastian Ogier stepped up this year, that's probably the comparison.
Yeah.
Is Ogier he's not needed to do this. The Toyota have asked him if he will essentially become more of a threat in the Drivers' Championship because he was at some point, I think it was after Finland, he became their closest driver. Ogier accepted that. I know he's at a very different point, and Cowie's made a thing this year to try and do, but it's
I've got to say, I was
it's
quite...
a thorny one.
It is a thorny one. I personally would say, Calais, enjoy your holiday. A little bit.
No,
Maybe.
I think there's more to it. I genuinely
Do you think there's a conspiracy theory here?
No, I
What-
am
there's
just,
more to
you know,
it.
if
He's
so,
mixing in the cauldron.
Yeah.
So
right now.
you've had your year off. You're coming to
Well,
the
he
end
hasn't
of
yet.
you're coming.
You're not even giving him
You're
6
coming.
months
No,
off.
he has had his year off because Japan ended a week early last year. He's had his year off, right? He's had his year. He's had his year without any
Impressive
without any
pedantry,
full-time.
by the way. I'll give you that.
He's had his
yeah.
year off. He knows. He knows he's coming back.
do that.
So we're
That's an awful
told. No, I love that. He knows he's coming back. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he say, yeah, I tell you what, it's been a tough year without me. You needed me. I get you needed me. You need me now more than you've ever needed me, so I'm coming back to help you out. To retrieve potentially what is a disastrous situation.
No.
Hyundai taking the manufacturers and drivers title in the same year. Worse than that, from Toyota's perspective, in Toyota City. In Toyota City, and
It's not Calais' fault.
you as a Toyota driver through and through
Part-time Toyota driver.
can do your bit. Who's on holiday on a beach somewhere can do your bit to potentially mitigate that.
He's on holiday.
Can I jump in? You said something very...
I am
I'm swaying.
No, I haven't.
You saying it's not Cowley's fault is a very, very good point.
It's not.
Because it isn't. You are
It's
right.
not Cowley's
He
fault.
signed up this year to be a part-time
He's
driver.
kind of done more than his fair share. You know,
Oh, he has.
hasn't
He's won. How many has he won?
Four.
But the
he's
point
won.
as well, Cole, is that you've got to consider that they made an agreement, and Calais is coming back, as far as we know, for next year, and is a good investment into the future. You're potentially undermining that investment if you now say, you've got to come back. You've got to come back.
I am not suggesting they say to him, you've got to come back. This is not, I'm not
You're
suggesting...
thinking that he should say, oh, I'll come back,
Correct.
sir. I'll come off
Correct.
holidays.
And
Why? He's a professional. He's done his bit. He's full. Yes, I can see your point, but you're leaning into a more of an emotional kind of
It's
argument.
totally emotional. It is totally emotional. It is totally emotional. It's like, you know, at the end of the season, football season, Man United. You know, Man United are in the final game of the season, and if they lose, they're relegated, which might well happen this year.
And
Because
they
Man
bring-
United are awful. They are utterly
Sorry,
awful.
United fans, but I'm
Eric
not one of you, so
Cantona,
I don't
Eric
mind.
was gonna say,
Cantona
they bring back
is sitting
Eric
in the
Cantona.
stand, and Peter Schmeichel is sitting in the stand.
And Beckham's
And
just outside.
Brian Robson is somewhere as well. And you say to them, boys, can you help us out? We're absolutely dreadful. We've been awful all season. We need that spine, that backbone to avoid relegation.
But that's
No,
like
I'm on
saying
my
Juha
holidays.
Kenkkonen's
I'm on
just
my
over
holidays.
there,
I'm on my
or
holidays.
Tommy
I'm not
Mäkinen's
coming to
over
help you out. I'm on my holidays.
He's on his holidays. Leave the boy be.
Okay. We'll disagree.
I think we'll wrap that particular point
Yeah.
in there and not go too further. But yeah, just to reiterate, Hyundai will have Tanak, Neuville and Mikkelsen up against Katsuta, Evans and Ogier.
Which is the strongest of those
Toyota.
two lineups?
Toyota for me, on balance, across the board, I think. I know the host shouldn't really have answered that first, but...
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Who's the weakness? Mikkelsen.
But
Mikkelsen's the weakness.
Where does the strength come? Because internally, there's still a battle to fight in Hyundai. In Toyota, they're all pulling in one direction.
And that's another good point, isn't
And
it?
potentially in Hyundai, Tanak is still, you know, particularly if there's a bit of a chance.
How much? How much is he distracted by it? 0.5%.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's Tanak.
Half a
I
percent.
think it's Thierry. How much does Thierry really want to jeopardise what he's got?
Yeah.
in
He's
front of him for the
That's
driving
correct.
title? Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah, and
That
then
is
they're,
correct.
then they're very
That
reliant
is correct.
on Mikkelsen, which that week
He's the
it is
weakness.
weaker because you know less experience
Yeah.
for a Rally 1 car in Japan. Taka, so yeah, Toyota's the strongest.
He's got no experience of a Rally 1 car. He won the Rally 2, didn't he? Did he win the Rally 2?
Yeah, it was there last year in
Yeah.
a WRC2,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be a new experience for him. But in fairness to Andreas, he did have some much better pace and feeling in the CER, and he is doing a warm-up event as well. So there is some time to get kind of on top of it, but I think...
Are you saying I'm being a bit hard on him?
No, because I agree, of the six, he probably is the weakest, but we
He
could
was
get
pretty good
proven
on
to be...
Power
horribly
Stage
wrong.
Sunday on CR.
He was unlucky there with the puncture early on as well, wasn't he?
So
yeah,
he was on a strategy, wasn't he? He was on a strategy with those hard compound tyres.
Yeah.
But it was a strange one. It was
Yeah.
a strategy aimed at the power stage, but anyway.
Now, I don't think we're going to dedicate too much time to it. Sorry, I'm sport fans, but given the championship permutations, but it's just worth reminding there are two other Rally 1 cars there. Gregoire Munster and Adrian Fourmeux will be in Pumas. For me, I think Fourmeux is potentially a bit of a dark horse for a result here because he has...
As you wave me goodbye.
I wondered where this is going. Yeah, maybe a reference to the driver market there, of course.
Maybe.
But yeah, but we know he wants to win a rally. He's quite desperate to. I think there is a chance to do it here because he doesn't have to think about anything else. He's not really in contention for third in the championship, which he wanted to get. So I think he could be one to watch out for. But I want to touch on WRC2, gents, because that's the other championship that is up for grabs. It's been quite a strange season of maths and
Always is.
permutations.
And-
Ridiculous.
And I thought the manufacturers' permutations were complicated. Talk to us about WRC2. How complicated is that? It's not so complicated now.
For Japan itself, it's fairly straightforward. Sami Pajari essentially needs to finish second or higher, so second or first, and that will give him more points than Oliver Solberg, who currently leads. If Sami is third or lower, then Oliver Solberg will take the championship. Oliver obviously isn't here in Japan. He's done all of his registered rounds. Sami will be up against a few top spot scooters. I know Gus Greensmith's talked about it a lot, trying to help out his teammate Solberg. So it will be an interesting battle, but Sami's got to be the favourite, hasn't he?
Greensmith on you know, if we look at his current form, actually his form all season, Greensmith's got no chance. No chance against Pajari. Pajari will wipe the floor with him.
Tarmac rally?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Pajari in that Toyota, he won what, 3 in a row? Was it certainly 2 in a row, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pieri comes off the back of the Rally 1 performance, full of confidence, and we talked about that earlier
Where he
on.
crashed.
Little crash on the last day, just a little minor setback on the last day in CER. I genuinely can't see Gus Greensmith with his current form. Something has changed with Gus this year, and I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is. But the last 4 or 5 rallies, he
hasn't looked comfortable
not
in the car,
comfortable.
has he?
He's just not looked comfortable.
He's picked it up on the last. The results haven't been there, but the speed in Greece before he had a slight skirmish with the car was better.
Yeah, Greece was unlucky. Greece was unlucky. It's relatively easy to pick your pace up and to show increased pace over a number of stages. That's relatively easy. But in WRC2, to sustain that pace, to win rallies, as we've seen, is not easy. And Gus hasn't been at that form since probably Safari. And Safari was a strange one, but Safari was a remarkable result from. I don't see Pieri having any issues in beating Gus. But there are others.
I can't see Pieri having any issues at all in winning the championship. And for me, it's an absolute travesty. It's not a travesty because Oliver Solberg isn't winning, which it kind of is, but it's a travesty that we're not having a championship fight with them going head to head.
How great would that be? How great would that
Yeah.
be to have 2 or 3 drivers, David, I know you've been very outspoken about the way that the Rally 2 or WRC2 Championship is constructed. This is what we're missing out on.
Yeah.
It's a farce. It is nothing short of a farce.
And
that we have drivers who could win the title sitting at home.
Yeah.
Oliver wins it Sunday afternoon in Japan. He's in Sweden on his Bobcat.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the big arguments for this policy of drivers, they do 7, take 6, but they can do whichever
Any
7 they want.
Yeah.
Is that that you need to spread the love with the events. The events all need the entries. Right. So here's an idea. Then we have next year we'll have 8 WRC2 rounds and 6 junior rounds.
Yeah. It's a cop-out, David. It's a total cop-out what they're saying. It's a cop-out.
Absolute nonsense. It's just trying to spread the field so that everybody can be saying that. It's one of those things, isn't it, that you could almost, with 2 rounds left, there was probably 15 drivers that could still just about win it. Why don't they go to whole hog and have double points on the last round? Complete nonsense.
Where do they do that?
That was very passionate.
ERC.
Or no, they do it in juniors.
Well,
They do
ERC as well. Yeah.
They fixed half that problem.
Losing my mind briefly, but they do it.
But I always had an issue with that, in that they chose Acropolis for that as well, which was one of the biggest lotteries. But they have fixed that for next year, I'll say that. So we're not throwing them.
Other drivers that may
get in the way.
And there are lots of things. We've talked about weather, we've talked about conditions, we've talked about the particular challenge of Japan. That may get in Pieri's way, but Pieri is capable of dealing with that. Other drivers, what do we think about Chris Ingram? Will he register for WRC2 points?
I think so.
Yeah. That's why he's there, Cole.
What can he? Yeah.
To get in the way and to stop.
Is he there? He's driving a Toyota.
Yeah.
To get in the way of Pieri winning the championship for Toyota?
No. To put people between.
Yeah.
Why is Chris Ingram there? Why is it there? You're fun to all knowledge.
You had me confused for a second there. I defer and believe everything you say. And for a second there, I was completely confused.
Never make that mistake again. You've spoken to Chris Ingram. Why is he there? Why is he going?
As far as I understand, it's a Castrol thing, who is sponsoring the team that he's been with this year. It's kind of like a celebration of his year. And I think it's essentially a bit of get myself back in there with the aim of coming back next year in WRC2.
If I was Pieri, I'd rather have him there, Chris Ingram there in a Toyota, than Chris Ingram there in a Skoda.
Yeah,
because
of course.
He is effectively a teammate, isn't he?
Yeah.
Effectively a teammate.
Yeah.
I want to ask you as well, because you said something
No difficult questions. Please, not at this
It
time.
might be slightly difficult, but about
1979.
It's coming. It's coming. But yeah, a few minutes ago you said something interesting about Solberg in passing, and I want to ask who do you think the deserving and rightful WRC2 champion is this year? Is there one driver? Is there two
I would say Solberg.
It can only be Solberg or PR, just to clear that up. They're the only two that can now.
Solberg, if I'm right in thinking, he made one mistake in Portugal where he rolled first on the scene of Robin Perez's crash.
That's right.
Knew that the car was off,
Yeah.
It's easy to sit here and say, listen to the notes, you focus on the apex, you don't get distracted. But first on the scene, and he probably saw Yoni or Cali, and immediately you are going to look for the car. And it
You're
was a
looking for the
split
car.
second.
Not only that, you're looking for the OK boards. There's lots goes on in those split seconds. There's lots goes on when you come across
And that seems harsh. That you know, there was the one event, I can't remember which event. Was it Poland where Sammy beat Oliver on pace? And Oliver got out of the car and said, "Fair dues, mate." Shook his hand. I couldn't catch you this time. Elsewhere, I would say Oliver's been the quicker of the two, and for me, he deserves it across the spread of the season.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm finding it difficult to argue against that. I think
Go with
the only other driver, we're talking about Solberg against Pirey. I'd have put Russell into that mix.
You can't.
Why can't I?
Because he said you can't.
I didn't see a can. I
You
just
did. You said it has to be between the two of them.
No,
it does.
that's
At this
who
point
can
now. At
actually
this
win.
point now. But in terms of who deserves the title,
Yeah. I could turn around and say Ogier deserves the overall championship. He can't win it. I don't think that, by the way. I do think it is Thierry just to go that up. But you get the point. I'm allowing Russell.
Russell, I think, is a driver who continues to improve. And okay, he's a little older than some of the others. He's a little older than Solberg, a little older than Pirey. But
He's
I
maturing like a fine French wine.
He is, and do you know what? That
the way
Citroen's never been the greatest of cars, the most reliable of cars. But they've worked with it, and he gets the most out of it. And I like the look of Russell. Would he have deserved the title? Yeah, he would have deserved it. But I agree with you. The most deserving, I think, is Oliver Solberg. And I feel for him. And we saw him at CER when it came down to the puncture, didn't it? It was the puncture that cost him the Chile, not CER. He thought, his whole season, his whole season has come down to a puncture that he had absolutely no control over. And it did seem grossly unfair. And the emotion was quite clear, wasn't it, at the time? And, he's a different guy. He's no longer a child. He's no longer a boy. He is now a man. He's a proper rally driver now, and he's developed his craft. We talked about craft earlier. Solberg has developed his craft beautifully this year, and he does look like close to a complete driver. And
he looks ready to step back into a Rally 1 car.
He absolutely does. Yeah. Absolutely does. And it's, again, when we talk about travesties, it's a travesty, and I feel for him. I feel for him. The promoter's done some good work this year, putting young drivers into Rally 1 cars. They'll never, sadly, put Oliver Solberg into a Rally 1 car, and that's a real shame. That's all down to, I imagine. I say that. I'd like them to surprise me and put him and give him a chance again. But I suspect the conflict of interest with Red Bull and with Monster might be too much. But
time will tell.
If there's one driver that time will tell.
Well,
sounds like you know something. But yeah, I'd love to see him getting another chance. And surely, if he does win the title, Oliver Solberg, surely the reward for that from the promoter should be the opportunity to
why
show.
Why should the promoter reward success? Because then you make a rod for your own back, and whoever wins next year. Oh, hello.
It's all about reward. You look at the juniors, it's all about rewarding success, David. Every aspect of it is about rewarding success.
Yeah, but I don't think you can start.
The only element that doesn't reward success is WRC2. And that's madness.
But no, because you're supposed to be elevated to that level. It's like in Formula 2, isn't it? You know, if you're that good, you are going to get picked up. The bigger issue here is that there's not enough seats.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have a sponsored seat for one event. There should be a natural progression into a manufacturer.
I get that, but you were all talking about your Pirey, about Sesks, and we're not talking about Solberg because it's been 2 years and the final 6 months, the final year of that was just write it off. The guy was just annihilated by his own team.
For me, he's the one. Solberg is the one that should be.
Totally. Why we're talking about these other drivers is a little bit beyond me right now, because if there was genuinely an opportunity, if a new manufacturer came along and they had to pick a junior driver, a young driver, it would only be Solberg. It would only be Solberg. Anyway.
It's getting a bit chilly in here now.
It's getting a bit chilly. Come on, time's coming on.
Time's up. But we're good. Yeah, there you go. You've been waiting the entire podcast or vodcast, whatever we're calling this one, for this moment. This section is just a bit of an explain as to why we're getting very excited about 45 years ago. And we are looking at title deciders in the World Rally Championship. Debating, I guess. Did we decide if it was 5 or 10? I actually can't remember. 5.
I've only done 5.
I can't debate. I can only debate one. Is that a debate?
The 5 best championship deciders. We'll bring some context in about some of them. Colin's done his research.
I've done a little bit of research, but the wrong research.
So how this is going to work is I'm going to go to Colin first. Sorry, David.
That's all right.
David second. And they're going to pick their 5 favourite title deciders from the World Rally Championships history.
Do you understand how it's going to work, Cole?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Now, the way I've looked at this might be slightly different from the way that you guys have looked at it. So I'm looking at title deciders, but I'm also looking at years where the happenings during that season were actually quite momentous.
So you're looking at a whole season.
So I've looked at the whole season, I've looked at the title decider, but I've also looked at the context of the year, as in debut wins, as in the end of a certain era.
So can you start with your fifth first?
My fifth?
Yes.
Oh goodness me, I was going to go chronological.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2009, what a year that was. Right down to the final rally
of years.
Between
we'll talk
the
about
two.
it afterwards.
2009, 2018 at number 4. At number 3, it is 1986. At number 2, it is 2002. And at number 1, well, it has to be the year where it all started, 1979.
That's ridiculous.
What is remarkable is I remember the list. I remember. Why is it ridiculous? My favourite car, the Datsun Violet, was campaigning in 1979. We don't know enough about Datsuns in the UK. We really don't. You go down to Australia and New Zealand, and they are absolutely
That's a great
fabulous.
reason. You've done well.
Anyway,
I can remember mine. So I've got
go ahead,
now.
David.
Right.
Have you
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
cheating? Are you?
I am. Yeah.
At least I could remember mine.
2003 at 5, 2001 at 4, number 3, same as you, 86. You're wrong.
Am I?
You are wrong. Number 2, 1995.
That is what I thought you'd pick up
Yep.
on. Yeah.
And number 1, it has to be 1998. It has to be.
Right.
It is like the slam dunker in theory, but part
Right, I'm
of
going to
me
put that back there, but I'll need to perhaps refer to it if you can.
part of me thinks 98 was overrated. Feels harsh, but it's so talked about and hyped up.
It depends where, what the measure of a remarkable final round is, because for 70 or 80% of that rally, it was just boring, because Tommy Mäkinen had knocked the wheel off when the Hillman Impet spilled
Second
oil
stage
in,
or something, wasn't it?
Millbrook.
Yeah.
Nothing happening, Carlos cruising through, and as our great friend George Donaldson said, they turned the wick down a wee bit too much on the Toyota, and
Which
something
Toyota
happened.
deny.
Which Toyota deny, so it may or may not be true. And something happened in the engine.
Do you think this was George's favourite title?
Quite possibly. and then literally at the last moment, bang, and for drama.
For drama, you can't beat that, and I'll give you that. But
what did the brief say?
Well, I'm not really sure. I'm really not sure, because I thought it was down to manufacturers. And the reason I went with 79, manufacturers' championship, it wasn't a battle between 2 manufacturers, which is what we saw in 98. It wasn't a battle between 3 manufacturers, 4, 5, or 6 even. There were 20 manufacturers.
20. That's remarkable.
20 different
all going
manufacturers.
into the final round with the
Not quite.
championship.
A number of those.
He really didn't read the brief.
A number of those may have only done 1 round. But that's besides the point. The point is the championship had 20 different manufacturers. And for me, it was the first year of the driver's title. There was an awful lot went into 79 that made it a memorable year. And, more than all of that, it was Ford's year. It was Ford's year. They won it. It took them another 27 years to win the title again, which in itself is incredible.
But the Ford driver won it in a Mercedes.
Again, what more spectacular can you get?
Yeah, he's
Why
done you
would
there.
you go
He has
beyond
done you
79? I mean, it's a remarkable story. Tell us that story, David Evans.
Ford were pulling out at the end of 79. They weren't going to Ivory Coast. Bjorn and Hanu still had a chance at the championship, so they went to Mercedes and said, can we? And they went to Ford, and Ford said, yeah, carry on you go. And away they went.
And they won in Ivory Coast, and the 450 SLC was one of only 2 rallies that car won.
Yeah.
It was a very strange thing. Mercedes and...
You've driven one.
I've driven one. But then it got crashed. Just a day or 2 after.
Were you involved?
Written off. No.
Really?
Beautiful car to drive, yeah.
Is that one of those stories that you had nothing to do with that cross kart that got crashed in Estonia?
Roll the tape.
Yeah, there is. Roll VT.
Have we got that still?
Despite your best efforts to delete it off the Dirtfish server, it still exists.
Honestly, it was the red mist. It was the red mist. I was going to beat him. David Evans every time will tell you how brilliant a driver he is and how a driver I am and all the rest. We get to the cross karts and I'm whipping him on every single lap, and he's getting more and more frustrated. And I'm thinking, yes.
And then I knew that when it came to the race, fine.
So what happened with the race was, unfortunately, I was on the outside line and got my visor covered in mud. And I tried to rip it off.
And then he
I
crashed.
couldn't rip it off. It all smudged. Bang!
Straight into the arm code.
You know what? I think about it, in terms of title deciders, that one wins. I don't know what the title was. Fastest dirtfish media member in a
It was a bad day. It was
a great day.
It was a great day, but it was a bad day because it cost someone a lot of money.
It's the first time we ever went airborne in a truck.
Oh dear, David, I'm having
Thanks,
hot
all
flushes
thanks
thinking
to
about that. I'm
all thanks to Marco
genuinely
Martin.
flushes.
It was a great day.
Anyway,
But,
79.
have we done your top 5?
No, but I'm the host. I don't have to think of it.
Well, give
That's
us your
what
top 3 then. Or
So
give us your,
I would say I'm thinking about it on the spot. Up the top for me, and this is going to sound a little bit biased towards where I come from.
yeah,
I'll be honest.
1995.
No, actually, this is controversial as a Scotsman. I put 2001 ahead.
Right.
As in terms of I think mainly because of
Should have been.
Yeah, well, just all the Battle of Britain, these 4 drivers going into it, all with a chance. It's like 95 was great, but it was only 2 guys, and it looked fairly obvious from the get-go who was going to do that.
Do you know what? That's one of the first memories I've got of rallying. First proper memories. I mean, I grew up watching.
1979.
You know, I've got a distinct memory of driving down the M6 to work. I used to work for Rothmans, and we had cars involved and BAT involved, and we had Marlboro as one of our brands as well. So we used to go to the REC every year. Driving down the motorway, listening to all the talk about this Battle of Britain. I used to listen to cricket on the way home, but driving home, they were still talking about the Battle of Britain on 5 Live and 5 Extra. And it's one of the real memories I've got of early memories of rallying was just the amount of interest there was in the UK around that particular event. It was incredible.
That's the same though. That was all over almost before it had begun.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
I was going to say, this is
Tommy
where
L.
it comes to how you would quantify what makes a good decider. Yeah, almost an anti-climax. It was like waiting for the result, as you say. Tommy was, I think, the first stage of some kind of suspension issue. He hit a rock or something. Colin's fairly famous big crash on, I think, the 4th stage. Carlos was in contention, but barely. And then
he went
What
off.
was the year of the fire in the car?
That was 03.
Was that 03?
Yeah.
That was the new onboards.
Wow.
Wasn't
yeah,
it?
there was some big story about that, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
They'd put the new onboards in, and there was smoke coming out of the dash from the onboard supplier. I can't remember who. And Carlos was distracted. But I mean, it was quite a long shot for Carlos to be champion that year. But that year in 01, as you said, Cole, the build-up, and then there was the super special in Cardiff Bay, and it was some sort of slag heap. It was awful.
Colin went up and nearly hit the tunnel. Where was that? We went off and came very close to stacking it on the opening stage.
No, it wasn't there.
No,
I don't think it was there. But I vividly remember, because it was such a big build-up, as you said, through the autumn of that. And we'd had a sweepstake in the office about who was going to get one of the 4 drivers. And I'd got McRae. And I remember at the start of the Super Special on a Thursday night, chatting to Nicky, and I said, I've got you in the Super Special. And he was like, don't worry, boy, all your money's safe. Happy days, here we go. And within 12 hours or something.
Not so
Thanks,
safe.
Nick. Not so safe. But and a great memory of the first stage, I think, was St. Gwyno that first morning, Friday morning. And we'd all traipsed out of Swansea in the convoy to go and watch it. There's one particular place towards the end of the stage, really, really quick section with a kind of a 5th, 6th gear kink in the middle of left hand, and we were well on the outside, although clearly not completely well on the outside. We were stood in a line watching them, and McRae came through, and he was the only one that was flat through that kink. It was remarkable. And Roy Aylett, the most lovely bloke, was stood with us. He came to most of the rallies and was the most enthusiastic supporter. Just brilliant. Great friend of Christie's. We were standing there and we all watched McRae go past. It was like, oh, wow, that's incredible. And Aylett had this brilliant ability to kind of analyse instantly what he'd done. Oh, my dear sweet thing he's done. And I stood next to Aylett and I was like, oh, Aylett! Aylett, where's Aylett? And looked down, and poor Aylett was on the floor, and the rock had come off the car, straight in the head, and it had floored him. Poor Aylett, we picked him up and we went straight to the inside of the corner. But within minutes, he was back round. I took one from McRae, that's great. And it was remarkable. And just to kind of see Colin, in his absolute pomp in that stage. And just like you said, the onboard that led to that accident is some of the most staggering onboard that you will ever see in the sport. And sadly, that one cut that was a don't cut, it changed everything. And after that, the event was pretty dull, really, wasn't it? Until a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, there was a little bit of live, and I seem to remember Burns had an issue with the car maybe not starting and stuff, but yeah, realistically it's...
It wasn't dull though, was it? It wasn't, because don't you remember, we found out
This
about
is
all
great.
of this.
It's not me that just absolutely meanders and pontificates
we
like
didn't
this.
know any of this at the time, but afterwards it all came out that when they came into the final service, of course, the court case was pending. Was Richard going to go to Peugeot? He wanted out of out of Subaru, but if he won the championship contractually, he was bound to Subaru. And talking to Richard and to Robert after the championship was done, they came into the final service undecided as to whether they would take the championship. Did they take a time penalty, give the championship away, so that they could get out of the contract and go to Peugeot? In the end, they took the championship, went to court, somebody paid a big bill, and they ended up at Peugeot. But all of that, outwardly, we knew nothing of that. And it was quite processional through the Saturday and Sunday. But yeah.
So what you're saying is I'm right, and it was the best decider. That's what I'm hearing from what you've just said.
You might be.
So
but 1979!
No, but I was going to say, if we're talking about dramatic final days, I think we both put 2009 in, but 2009 probably should have been higher. Should have been higher. That battle between Miko and Seb, Seb had a really difficult year. He'd crashed in Greece, he'd hit the stump in Poland, he'd had a time penalty in Australia. And we come down to GB, and it's Miko or it's Seb. And Miko, penultimate stage, bonnet pin went on the car, the bonnet came up, and it cost him the chance to win. And it went right down to the final stage, 1 point in it. That was drama, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't that drama?
It was. Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think
it was Miko Harvin, it was Ford, it was against Sebastian Loeb, against the greatest driver perhaps we've ever had. Yeah. Little Miko Harvin, who, he was a winner, he was a rally winner. Was he ever a world champion? Well, that was his chance to show it. Yeah. And it didn't happen for him.
Yeah,
So
I wonder if history's almost unkind to that one, because it just sits within the realm of Loeb's 9 consecutive champions. That maybe you forget just how close he actually was to potentially not being a world champion that year.
And of course, there was the whole thing that earlier in the year, Malcolm had swapped Miko and Jari-Matti around. Jari-Matti was leading in Sardinia.
I don't think he swapped. Latvia won Sardinia, however, he was second, but
he was allowed to win.
But he didn't. He didn't swap them, and that
talked to
technically would have.
About why he did that, and his decision at the time was exactly right, because Latvia had just come off the back of the huge crash in Portugal, and the win in Sardinia or Greece, wherever it was, rebuilt that confidence. And
so if we go back to my original assumption about the brief, which was about dramatic moments during the year. We have to look back to Rally Poland that year, and we have to look back to Latvala on the final stage crashing, giving an extra point, points to Sebastian Loeb. We have to look back to Konrad Rautenbach, remember him, stopping in the penultimate stage for 15 minutes, 15 minutes to allow Loeb, who was in 11th place at the time, to take 10th place. He then took 9th place because Latvala stuffed it on the all of these things, when you talk about drama and drama building up to championships.
But it wasn't about the season, it was about the final round.
I misread the brief. Thanks very much.
I think the other one you both brought up, and we'll just give a quick mention to it, a bit of context, is 1986. And this one, I guess the rally itself, Olympus that year, the final event for the Group B cars, Juha Kankkunen versus Markku Alén, wasn't the most enticing, but it was all about the controversy of San Remo and then what happened afterwards, the championship being decided in court.
Peugeot would have won San Remo, but their cars the 205 was fitted with, they called them strakes, I think. And they were side skirts, which were underneath the cell, running the length of the side. And Peugeot said they were there as protection for the fuel tank. And Lancia said, no, they're there for aerodynamic, for ground effect. And they protested them, and the event stewards said, yep, no, they're ground effect, they're illegal, kicked Peugeot out. And I mean, it was a huge, huge deal at the time. From memory, I didn't do enough homework on this. I think Biasion was leading, and then Biasion had to similar to Conrad Rautenbach's wait for a long time. Alain came through, won the event, and then Alain won in Olympus in the final round. Neither Peugeot or Lancia were ever going to Olympus. They expected to have the championship all sewn up before then. Toyota had sent a couple of Celica twin cams out thinking, well, hey, here we go, last ever round, watch this, boys. And then suddenly Peugeot and Lancia arrived. And it was, again, it wasn't a great event. Peugeot, from memory, Kankkunen had a problem, an electrical problem or something early doors. It took a long time to change the part. He dropped a minute. Alain was well out ahead. And Alain won the event and was world champion for 11 days. And then Jean-Marie Balestre got them all together in Paris. And it was a strange old time, that, because Balestre was part of FFSA, and it was no surprise that, the decision was probably the right one, but it was no surprise that a French president voted in favour. The whole thing before it got to Paris had actually been to the CSAI, the Italian authorities in Rome, and predictably the Italians said, nah, it's all fine, carry on. Lancia are champions. So yeah, it was, you kind of think, well, at the time, apparently Cesare Fiorio said, oh, outrageous, hey, outrageous. That was Italian accent.
You didn't
They're going to protest. They're going to protest. And then suddenly they remembered, that guy that's just won the championship, Johan Kankkunen, who's he driving for next year? Oh yeah, us. I know, it's all right.
Yeah, let's keep it. Just to explain a little bit, to add on to that as well, the reason, essentially, the decision that was made is that the results for Sanremo were annulled, weren't they? So they didn't count towards the championship.
Yeah.
Marco Len still officially won that event as an event only, but didn't get any points for it in terms of the WRC. So plenty of interesting
exactly
points.
What that man says.
Exactly.
What was interesting in those days, David, and I know, and this is probably going off script a little bit, we talk about politics just now in motorsport. Goodness me, with the characters that you had in the mid-80s, particularly Balestre and the others, the politics around rallying was just, it was almost crippling. It was almost crippling at times.
Yeah.
We should be thankful that it's not as bad as that these days.
Well,
could be worse.
No, equally, it gave you stories to tell.
It gave you great stories and great drama. And are we kind of sanitising it a little too much these days?
I think you look, obviously, 80s.
No way. You might have to beep that.
No, I think that's right. There was an awful lot of drama through '86, and an awful lot of tragedy through '86.
Yes.
But at every turn, there was something to talk about, something to say, and there were so many more drivers. But you do look through rose-tinted spectacles, and we're well off script here. Yeah. But you look at the majority of rounds in '86 were decided by minutes. The fight is so much closer. But equally, the rallies were so much longer back then. We've had this conversation
with our great friend Andrea Damo, and he says that. He says it's you forget, you talk about how wonderful things were in the 80s, but you look at the individual rallies, and
they were.
The drama wasn't actually on the timesheets.
No.
The drama was outside of the timesheets.
But what they did
in the majority of rallies.
But what they had, Cole, was that absolute magician, Barry Hinchliffe, who could put together the most remarkable TV program about. Because there was no internet, because there was no probably teletext or whatever there was at that time, you found out what had happened a week, 10 days later when you watched Barry Hinchliffe's half-hour show. And it was remarkable. And fortunately, where can you watch those things now, Cole?
You can, go on, Luke.
I'm having passed the buck.
Yep.
Yeah, that is now on Dirtfish's YouTube. We own the archive. So it's very good. I see Elliot, our producer, clapping in the background. Very impressed with that little plug.
Like a seal.
Yeah, like a seal clap, yeah. But there we go. I think that
I would clap, but I can't feel my fingers now, or my toes.
It's that cold.
It's that cold.
Yeah.
What are you saying about the barn, David?
It's a bit
chilly. Do you want some heaters next time?
Yes.
High maintenance.
I'll do my best.
High maintenance.
And a cup of tea with not too much milk in it.
Exactly. And one that you haven't dropped the tea bag on the floor and then craftily put it in my
did
cup.
he miss this? I got it wrong. I got it wrong on every level. Probably the wrong cup. Probably the wrong temperature of the boiling water. But, but that's fine. It is.
I mean, two things that have been taxing today, making a cup of tea and reading the brief. Cole struggled with them both.
Dropped the tea bag, put too much milk in the tea, he left.
Milky.
I would say some very random twists and turns that wraps up our title.
It's been a journey,
it has been a journey, just like the 2024 season has, David.
Yeah.
The World Championship.
Seamless.
Yes, of course.
The final chapter is yet to be told.
It
Yes,
is.
indeed.
And these two will be on your screen throughout the weekend on Dirtfish's YouTube channel and across all socials. So make sure you are subscribed and watching all of that. Spin the Rally Pod, there'll be, of course, the review of whoever the world champion is on Wednesday. And let us know in the comments as well, A, who you think is going to win this year's World Championship, and what you think of our picks for the best title deciders in history. Without further ado, we'll wrap this up before David's fingers
What was
fall
his?
off.
Just to go back.
And
Was it
1979, it was a great year. Do you know how many manufacturers
So you
there
said
were?
number 79 was number 1?
Yeah.
Seriously?
I did, just because of the absolute, because the year itself was so monumental.
So put that in the comments. 79. Who even
If you want.
remembers it?
Or 2009. But I didn't say that was second. I should have done. Changed my mind. You're allowed to.